Individual success, when your people are suffering, shouldn't feel good, because it should be a reminder that, oh yes, I quote unquote made it. But if you look back and your people are suffering, then you really didn't make it. Because I don't want to make it to the mountaintop that Martin talked about if I'm standing there alone. I want to make it to that mountaintop and look around and see all these beautiful black faces. Welcome back to the podcast.
Come on, give the power to the people. Give the power to the people. Yeah, yeah.
By any means necessary.
I'm your host, Melody Angel, and today we're going to be talking about how the U.S. capitalist system is based on the exploitation of black people. I'm going to break it down so it can forever and consistently be broke. From the beginning, black bodies have fueled the engine of U.S. capitalism, not as shareholders, but as commodities. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Now, before you roll your eyes or call this anti-American, listen closely, because this isn't an opinion. This is history. This is data. This is a lived experience. This isn't about feelings. It's about facts, about history, policy, power, and profit. So buckle up, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Now, first, let me explain what capitalism is. And I'm going to use the game Monopoly to help me explain it to you. Okay? So imagine this. You're playing Monopoly with 4 people. Everyone starts with the same amount of money, rolls the same dice, and follows the same rules. On the surface, it looks fair, just like capitalism claims to be. But capitalism is the illusion of equality. The game is really set up like this. One player already owns half the properties before the game starts. They got their wealth passed down to them. Another player isn't allowed to buy property for the first 5 turns. A third player is allowed to play, but their money gets taken away if they land on certain spaces, a penalty the others don't face. And the last player, they play by all the official rules. Now start the game. What do you think happens? The player who owns property from the start, they start collecting rent immediately. Their money grows without even working for it. The player who can't buy property early on, they fall behind fast. And every time they land on someone else's space, they pay rent, but they don't have assets of their own. The one losing money unfairly, they're consistently broke and in debt, and one roll away from losing it all. The equal rules player might survive for a while, but they're still playing on a board that is unfair. And that's capitalism. What does this teach us? Inherited wealth matters. Those who start with assets will keep accumulating more. You see, exclusion from opportunity, even temporarily, has lasting effects because the rules for us were not the same. In real life, just like this version of Monopoly, systems are rigged through policy, policing, and power. Power we don't have. And when someone goes bankrupt in the game, the rich player just picks up their properties and keeps moving. Just like how corporations buy up foreclosed homes or failing businesses to grow their wealth. It's important to note that Monopoly was never just a game. It was created in the early 1900s to teach people about the dangers of unchecked capitalism. Originally called the landlord's game. And its purpose was to show how wealth becomes concentrated and leads to poverty and monopoly. In capitalism, like Monopoly, the game rewards accumulation, not fairness. The more you have, the easier it is to get more. If you're shut out early, you will never catch up. And just like in the game, eventually one person wins and everyone else loses. And those are your 1%ers, your billionaires. But in real life, we can flip the board. We can change the rules. We can decide to stop playing a game that was never meant for Black folks to win. Let's begin with some undeniable facts of history. Capitalism in America didn't just happen to exploit Black people. It depended on it. It started with chattel slavery, not to be confused by indentured slavery. Under U.S. chattel slavery, Black people were considered property for life. The status was inherited. Children born to enslaved mothers were automatically enslaved as well. Slaves had no legal personhood, no rights, exclusively applied to people of African descent only. Enslavers could buy, sell, trade, or punish slaves with complete impunity. In contrast, slavery of other nations like Africa at the same time used what was called indentured servitude, which was a form of contract labor, typically lasting 4 to 7 years. Servants were usually European immigrants, often poor, who agreed to work for passage to the colonies. They retained some legal rights and could petition for mistreatment. Upon completion of their indentured servitude, they were often given freedom dues, land, tools, or money to get started. Not inherently racial, many indentured servants usually became settlers in the society. So for all you fools that say, well, y'all had slaves too, no one but the Europeans thought to do something as inhumane as chattel slavery, period. The end. Y'all get that despicable crown. And while we're on the subject of chattel slavery, it was enforced by brutal violence. They had guns and we didn't. So they were able to beat us and mutilate us legally. They ate our people, made grease and boots and belts out of our skin. They kept our appendages in jars on their desks like trophies. Enslaved women and girls were routinely raped and forced to breed or used for the sexual gratification of enslavers. This was not criminalized either. Families were separated, children sold, and loved ones killed or maimed as a form of control. Slaves were often monitored by patrols, overseers, aka the pigs, aka the police, and subjected to extreme discipline for disobedience or escape attempts. Resistance was met with deadly force. Runaways were hunted with dogs, and revolts were crushed with mass killings or exemplary torture. In contrast, indentured servants retained legal recourse and were not continuously oppressed by laws or racial codes. They were not systematically violent to the same degree as chattel slavery, nor designed to be permanent or generational. Our ancestors never imagined such a horrible thing was possible. U.S. chattel slavery is the largest forced labor system in history. In 1860, enslaved Africans made up nearly 4 million people, and their market value exceeded $3 billion. That was more than the total worth of every bank, factory, and railroad in the country. The U.S. economy, especially in the South, was fueled by cotton, which was picked by Black hands and traded in global markets. Northern banks and insurance companies underwrote it all. After emancipation, new chains replaced old ones. Enter the Black codes, laws that criminalize our so-called freedom. If a Black person didn't have proof of employment, he or she could be arrested for vagrancy. And what came next after that? Convict leasing. Basically slavery under a different name, where prisoners, mostly Black, were rented out to companies for profit. Then came the Jim Crow laws, legal apartheid that kept black people out of white schools, white jobs, white neighborhoods, and white wealth. We were denied access to opportunity while being blamed for the poverty the system created for us. This wasn't accidental. This was the blueprint. After emancipation, black communities sought economic freedom. Freed men pooled resources, bought land, started businesses together, built towns like Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But capitalism, intertwined with white supremacy, doesn't tolerate black independence. In 1921, Greenwood, Black Wall Street, was burned to the ground by a white mob. They massacred the people with their guns, and they even dropped bombs on their heads and then stole their land. The police watched and contained the people so that they couldn't escape the carnage. Insurance companies refused to pay claims, and the black folks lost their land. The state looked away, and it wasn't just Tulsa. In Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, the same thing happened again. A thriving black economy destroyed again. Then came redlining. Starting in the 1930s, government-sanctioned maps marked black neighborhoods as high risk, denying mortgages, insurance, and investment. While white families used FHA loans to buy homes and build wealth, black families were locked out. The racial wealth gap, it didn't just happen, it was engineered. So while white America built wealth through home ownership and suburban expansion, black America was locked into poverty-stricken areas, stripped of equity and stability. This is the root of the racial wealth gap, which still persists today. The average white family's wealth is nearly 8 times that of the average black family. Not because of lack of work ethic, but lack of access and centuries of extraction. And then came mass incarceration, the modern plantation fueled by Nixon's war on drugs and Reagan's follow-up policies. Prisons exploded into $1 billion and then $1 trillion business. In Monopoly, it would be like getting Park Avenue and just watching the money roll in. Today, black people make up 13% of the U.S. population, but nearly 40% of the incarcerated population due to what? Over-policing of our communities and the so-called justice system not being just. It's deeply corrupted by capitalism, from private prisons to bail systems to underfunded public defenders. It all profits off of black bodies. Let's fast forward to today. Black workers are overrepresented in low-wage, unstable jobs. Health aides, retail workers, drivers, fast food employees. On average, black workers earn 30% less than white workers in the same roles. Not to mention, Trump the chump is laying off black government workers at an alarming rate. So there goes their pension and their health insurance. And even when black families earn more, it doesn't translate to generational wealth. Why? Because our communities lack investment. Our debt loads are higher. Our assets are fewer. And our community is constantly under attack because we don't own the land in our communities. Whoever owns the land runs the land, which then leads to gentrification. Can't leave that out. Across the country, from Harlem to Oakland, Atlanta to Chicago, black neighborhoods are being revitalized without black residents. Non-black developers move in, rents rise, and black families are priced out. Our culture is sold, our people are displaced, And that's not development, that's extraction. It's the same old story. Black labor, black culture, black suffering for someone else's profit. Private equity firms are now buying up hospitals, nursing homes, even housing in black areas, jacking up prices, evicting tenants, cutting costs, and maximizing profits. Even our culture, our music, our style, our language, they're all commodities sold back to us by brands that rarely invest in our lives. That's exploitation. That's capitalism. You must understand that capitalism never stopped exploiting black people. It just changed clothes. Like how these MAGA idiots are just the KKK rebranded. Yeah, I said it. But we'll dive deeper into that on another episode. The point is, our neighborhoods are saturated with liquor stores, payday lenders, fast food chains, and underfunded schools because we don't own the land and the businesses in our communities. You own it, you run it. That's it. We cannot reform a system that was built to exploit us. We have to build something new. That's the only solution. It's not about separatism. Don't get scared, right? It's about sovereignty, right? It's about self-determination. It's about building our own institutions. It's about control of our own destiny, which everyone should have the right to do by birth. Then that means we have to find another way. Now let's talk about what we can do. We can start Black-owned co-ops where workers and owners and profits stay in the community. We can do community land trusts and prevent displacement by taking housing off the speculative market and into collective ownership. We can do credit unions and mutual aids, banking that serves us, mutual aids that meet our needs when the state won't. Political education, teaching the fullness of our history, power dynamics, and organizing strategies from kindergarten to adulthood within our own private school system that we control. Black farming and food sovereignty, which will end our reliance on food systems that poison and neglect us with food deserts. We need a comprehensive youth leadership and mentorship program, empowering the next generation to lead without waiting for permission. If you're wondering where I'm getting all this from, let's be clear. I didn't come up with this, and neither did our leaders from the 60s. I got these strategies from researching the fullness of our history. For example, the first African empires were not based on capitalism. Instead, they operated under community-based collective economic and social systems. These early African civilizations, such as ancient Ghana, Mali, and the Great Zimbabwe, developed complex societies with advanced trade networks, governance systems, and cultural practices. But their economies and social structures were fundamentally different from modern capitalist systems, and they had empires. In most early African empires, land was not owned by individuals as private property. Instead, land belonged to the community, a clan, or a kingdom. It was considered a communal resource used by families or groups for farming, grazing, and living. Leaders or councils would often allocate land according to need rather than market value. These societies emphasize reciprocity, mutual aid, and redistribution. Wealth, often measured in livestock, food, or trade goods, was shared through traditional systems, such as a tribute to kings or chiefs, who would then redistribute resources during festivals, famines, or for public works. Extended family networks, which pooled labor and resources to support each other. The whole family took care of each other, worked together. This redistribution system strengthened social cohesion and minimized extreme inequality. While trade was important, especially trans-Saharan trade in gold, salt, and other goods, it was not guided by profit maximization or capital accumulation. Trade relationships were often based on long-standing trust, kinship ties, and social contracts. Markets were embedded within the community, regulated by local customs rather than free market competition. Labor was typically organized through family units, kinship obligations, and community labor systems like age grades or rotational communal work. Though some societies did have forms of slavery, like I said, the indentured servitude, these were extremely different from chattel slavery. You were basically just working off a debt, and you were still free to get married, to have a family, all that stuff. No one was trying to ruin your life or tell you you were beneath them because of the color of your skin. African empires operated on systems grounded in community. And that's what we need to get back to. It is our responsibility to find ourselves again. And you find yourself when you learn the fullness of your history. When you know who you are and where you come from, you will understand that Black people at our best are in community with each other. That's when we are at our best. That is where we are our strongest, when we are together, when we are united. It is a fact. History proves it. And European colonization does not have to be the end of our story. It can just be a piece of our story. Something where we looked at it and said, okay, we lost ourselves for a bit. They tried to destroy us, but they didn't. They couldn't. This is not the final chapter. The final chapter is when we find our way back to ourselves. And that is a unified people. And from learning this history, now you get to see that what I'm saying is not some kind of fantasy or utopia. This happened before, centuries ago. That means it can happen again. But we have to get to the place where we accept the truth. We have to accept the truth about capitalism. To be clear, capitalism isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed. Capitalism in America was born on the auction block, raised in the cotton fields, and matured in the boardrooms that profited from our pain. It continues in prisons, in paycheck gaps, in gentrified streets, and through stolen futures. But here's what's also true. We are not powerless. The same brilliance that built Black Wall Street and the empires in Africa, the same unity that birthed the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power movement, the same vision that built community farms, schools, mutual aids, the pyramids, still lives in us. And it's time to organize, to divest from systems that seek to destroy us and build structures that heal us as a community. Because capitalism is not our destiny. Freedom is. Liberation is. We got to stop making excuses for why we won't begin this journey. Yes, it will be difficult. Anything worth having is difficult, but it's not about you or me. It's about us. Individual success, when your people are suffering, shouldn't feel good. It should be bittersweet, because it should be a reminder that, oh yes, I quote unquote made it. But if you look back and your people are suffering, then you really didn't make it. You are the equivalent of the black friend. You're the one they decided could make it, so they can prove that black people could make it. It's an illusion. Your success is an illusion if you're standing there alone. But if black people as a whole were successful in community together, that to me is real success. That to me is worth fighting for. That is what this is about. Because I don't want to make it to the mountaintop that Martin talked about if I'm standing there alone. I want to make it to that mountaintop and look around and see all these beautiful black faces. That's the mindset that we have to come together. Now, before I go, I have 4 books that will help you get started if you're interested in learning more about capitalism and our history inside and outside of the capitalist system. Okay, now, book number 1 is Powernomics, The National Plan to Empower Black Americans by Dr. Claude Anderson. It's a strategic blueprint for Black economic empowerment and community self-sufficiency. Also, I have another one of his books, Black Labor, White Wealth. That's also an incredible book too, but Powernomics specifically, he does a great job of breaking down what happened to us and how we can get ourselves out of the situation that we're in as far as U.S. capitalism goes. Number 2 is How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. So this isn't about U.S. capitalism. It's about European capitalist systems that exploited African labor and resources, which they still do to this day. But a lot of leaders in Africa are breaking that all the way down. Shout out to Burkina Faso. The third book I have for you is The Counter-Revolution of 1776, Slave Resistance and the Origins of the United States of America by Gerald Horne. Horne argues that the American Revolution was partially motivated by the desire to protect slavery and capitalist profits, revealing the deep ties between capitalism and racial exploitation. Great book. And then the last book, this one is called The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality by Cheikh Anta Diop, if I'm saying that right. I'll put it on the screen. So this book is more so about what I was talking about earlier, about the ancient African communities and how they formed and how they figured how to run as a community, as a collective. And it's just an amazing book. So check it out if you want to learn more about the ancient times, the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, you know. Anyway, that's for the history buffs. I'll be back next Wednesday with a new episode. If you want to help support the podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. And also leave a comment if you have any questions, and I will answer them. As always, I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power. Power to the people.
Come on, give Give the power to the people. Give the power to the people. Yeah, yeah. Give the power to the people. Give the power to the people. Yeah.